Good morning, good afternoon. Today, we are going to explore one of the most profound and meaningful titles given to Jesus Christ, the Lamb of God. This title not only encapsulates the essence of Christ's mission, but also provides a deep understanding of the sacrificial system established in the Old Testament. By the end of this presentation, we will have a clearer picture of why Jesus is called the Lamb of God and the significance of this title in our faith. When Jesus is called the Lamb of God in John 1 verse 29 and John 1 verse 36, it refers to him as the perfect and ultimate sacrifice for sin. To fully grasp who Christ was and what he did, we must begin with the Old Testament, which contains prophecies concerning the coming of Christ as a guilt offering. Isaiah 53 verse 10. The whole sacrificial system established by God in the Old Testament set the stage for the coming of Jesus Christ, who is the perfect sacrifice God would provide as atonement for the sins of his people. The sacrifice of lambs played a crucial role in Jewish religious life and the sacrificial system. When John the Baptist referred to Jesus as the Lamb of God who takes away the sin of the world, John 1 verse 29, the Jews who heard him might have immediately thought of several important sacrifices. 1. Passover lamb. The Passover feast was one of the main Jewish holidays, celebrating God's deliverance of the Israelites from bondage in Egypt. The slaying of the Passover lamb and the applying of the blood to the doorposts of the houses, Exodus 12 verses 11 to 13, is a beautiful picture of Christ's atoning work on the cross. Those for whom he died are covered by his blood, protecting us from spiritual death. 2. Daily sacrifice at the temple. Every morning and evening, a lamb was sacrificed in the temple for the sins of the people, Exodus 29 verses 38 to 42. These daily sacrifices pointed people towards the perfect sacrifice of Christ on the cross. In fact, the time of Jesus' death on the cross corresponds to the time the evening sacrifice was being made in the temple. 3. Prophecies of the Lamb. The Jews at that time would have been familiar with the Old Testament prophets Jeremiah and Isaiah, who foretold the coming of one who would be brought like a lamb led to the slaughter, Jeremiah 11 verse 19, Isaiah 53 verse 7, and whose sufferings and sacrifice would provide redemption for Israel. That person was none other than Jesus Christ, the Lamb of God. While the idea of a sacrificial system might seem strange to us today, the concept of payment or restitution is still one we can easily understand. We know that the wages of sin is death, Romans 6 verse 23, and that our sin separates us from God. We also know the Bible teaches we are all sinners and none of us is righteous before God, Romans 3 verse 23. Because of our sin, we are separated from God and we stand guilty before him. Therefore, the only hope we can have is if he provides a way for us to be reconciled to himself. And that is what he did in sending his son Jesus Christ to die on the cross. Christ died to make atonement for sin and to pay the penalty of the sins of all who believe in him. The Hebrew nation was looking for a Messiah who would deliver them from Rome. The goal of the Gospel of John was to change their understanding of the Messiah so that they could recognize in Jesus the fulfillment of the prophecies regarding the coming king. The Messiah would not be an earthly ruler. He came to fulfill all the Old Testament promises concerning himself, which include his self-sacrifice in behalf of the world, and to renew the relationship between God and his people. There are several references throughout the Bible that point to Jesus as the Lamb of God, each highlighting a different aspect of his role. Jesus, the Lamb who takes away our sin, John 1 verse 29. Jesus, the conquering Lamb, Revelation 5 verses 5 to 8. Jesus, the suffering Lamb, Isaiah 53 verse 7. Jesus, the sacrificial Passover lamb, 1 Corinthians 5 verse 7. Jesus, the spotless, perfect lamb, 1 Peter 1 verse 18 and 19.